Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. And if you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power.
Hotep, which in the language of ancient Egypt means we come with justice in peace. Welcome to Freedom Now, a Saturday Pan-Africanist and Internationalist World Affairs program. Freedom Now is committed to the principle of the rights of all peoples and nations to self-determination. We thank you deeply for your contribution to KPFK, which permits programs like Freedom Now to stay on the air. In this era of corporate acquisition and co-optation of all dissident media, we provide the microphone, challenging their corporate and racist point of view. So stay tuned for Agenda here at Freedom Now.
Fellas, I'm ready to get up and do my thing. I want to get into it, man, you know.
Peace, hoteps, and wisdom to all of our faithful and devoted listeners out there in the radio verse. This is Brother Brandon Sankara, and I want to start things off with a thank you to all of you listeners out there who continue to support Freedom Now. You keep us on our mission and allow us to bring you our agenda for today, Saturday, March 7th, 2026, as we dive deep into Japan and Black Studies. We begin with Sister Luyanda Kaboka, bringing us the African drumbeat historical calendar for the week, reminding us that every day is a day in African history. Then our very own treasure trove of wisdom, author, historian, and professor of African American Studies at the University of Houston, as well as Freedom Now co-producer Dr. Gerald Horne, is being joined first on the line by Etsuko Taketani, professor at the University of Tsukuba in Japan, and for our purposes today, author of the book Aerial Archives of Race, African American Cultural Expressions and the Black Nuclear Pacific. After that, we're going to send you over to Prison Radio for a message from none other than Mumia Abu Jamal, speaking on the history of the repressive nature of the U.S. empire. Lastly, we come back here as Dr. Horne will be in conversation with Yuichiro Onishi, Associate Professor of African American Studies at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities and author of the book Black Radical Thought in Japan, an Afro-Asian Intellectual History. Now I'm going to be on the ones and twos as we pour this knowledge, making sure your mental cup runneth over with revolutionary wisdom right here to quench your mental thirst on Freedom Now, KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, and kpfk.org streaming live on the web. To make sure we stay on the smooth ride with that cultural vibe you know and love, we'll be enjoying a musical bottom featuring Fela Kuti, Lalo Schifrin, George Kawaguchi, John Coltrane, Kenny Wheeler, and Jimbo Ross. Now people get ready for this train a-comin', taking you one step closer to mental liberation, and stay tuned for that beat of the historical drum, followed by an interview with Dr. Horne and Professor Etsuko Taketani.
Alafia. This is Sister Luyanda Koboka with Freedom Now's African Drumbeat Historical Calendar for the week of Tuesday, March 7th. We seek to immortalize our freedom fighters and our struggles by paying homage to them, giving life to those activities that move forward the inevitable march to the world based on human and spiritual values rather than profit, racism, and sexism. March 8th, 1820. Harriet Tubman, with a Bible and a gun, organizes hundreds of enslaved Africans through the Underground Railroad to freedom from chattel slavery. March 8, 1928. Laura Kofi was the most successful Universal Negro Improvement Association organizer next to Marcus Mosiah Garvey. These two, with thousands of cadre globally, built the UNIA and African Communities League. The UNIA and ACL, with over 5 million disciplined members, was the largest global organization of Africans at home and in the diaspora. Their objective was the building of a unified Africa free from colonial and neo-colonial rule and the repatriation of all Africans in the diaspora to build Africa. March 9th, 1898. Paul Robeson, singer, actor, athlete, scholar, and world-renowned revolutionary, was born. Paul Robeson was a leading spokesperson in the anti-capitalist, pro-socialist movement of the working class in general, and Africans in particular throughout Africa and the diaspora. March 10th, 1977. Lumumbist forces begin armed class war against the neo-colonial fascist regime of Mobutu, financed by the US CIA and the host of right-wing European Christian fundamentalists. March 12, 1947. The United States proclaims itself the protector of the world from the working class ideologies of socialism with the Truman Doctrine. Though without the socialist bloc, the Nazis would have been undefeated. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics sacrificed 30 million Russians in major battles to defeat Nazi Germany. March 12, 1927. Minerva Mirabal, the oldest of 3 Mirabal sisters, Dominican women, who defied the Trujillo dictatorship and the United States invasion and occupation of their country. All 3 sisters were executed on November 25, 1960, due to their militant anti-U.S. colonial activism. March 12, 1791. Benjamin Banneker, one of the greatest African architects of his period, is commissioned to lay out the complete city and capital of the United States, the District of Columbia. March 13, 1979. The revolutionary forces of the New Jewel movement in Grenada, led by Maurice Bishop, overthrow the Uncle Tom government of Eric Gary, thereby bringing the people of Grenada free medical care, education, subsidized foods, housing, and pride in their government of Grenada, serving the people of Grenada and not the multinational food and spice corporations. March 14th, late 17th century. Tituba, African Native American healer from Barbados, persecuted as a witch due to her practice of traditional African culture, was the slave of a Salem Christian minister. Tituba shunned the Puritan lifestyle and religion and openly practiced her African medical cultural rituals and was much sought after as a healer. The 1692 hysterical witch hunts against women targeted her for hanging. We hope that this overview of the struggle of the oppressed against all forms of exploitation will place your activism within a long and glorious tradition of struggle and will incite those sitting on the sidelines to take up ideological and organizational weapons to smash the present regime of Bush and all his lackeys in the Democratic and Republican parties of the world. We will close out with our chant of unity from the struggles in Azania, South Africa. Amandla, you respond Awetu, which means the power to rule, the power of the land, the power of humankind is ours, the people. Amandla Awetu, Amandla Awetu, Amandla Awetu.
For KPFK Los Angeles, this is Gerald Horne, and with me on the line is Etsuko Taketani, professor at the University of Tsukuba in Japan, and author of the book Aerial Archive of Race, African American Cultural Expressions and the Black Nuclear Pacific. Thank you for joining us on Freedom Now, KPFK Los Angeles, Etsuko Taketani.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here.
And we're honored to have you. So why did you produce this book?
I wrote this book because I wanted to address the questions that emerge when we take an aerial turn in African American studies. I ask what African American cultural expressions might become in the age of aeronautical technologies and space sciences. Planes and spaceships allow humans to leave the ground and become an Earth-independent atmospheric and interplanetary species. My earlier book, titled The Black Pacific Narrative, adopted an oceanic frame. It discussed pre-war Black-Japanese encounters that emerged when the United States evolved into a bi-oceanic empire that would fight World War II as a two-ocean war. However, as your epoch-making book, Storming the Heavens, demonstrated, even before the war, African Americans struggled to gain the right to fly in the 1920s and 1930s. In my new book, I bring the aeriality perspective to bear on Black Pacific studies, opening new archives, which I called Aerial Archives of Race, to describe the post-1945 Black Nuclear Pacific, which was born with the first aerial drop of an atom bomb on humans. I read texts by a diverse range of African-American artists, writers, and political thinkers, including Walter White, Edith Sampson, Josephine Baker, Langston Hughes, Lorraine Hansberry, and Malcolm X.
With regard to Langston Hughes, give us a capsule summary of who he was and how does he fit into your story?
Langston Hughes, he participated in the tradition of the Black Pacific before the war. He was kicked out of Japan on charge of being a Soviet spy, but he also continued and transformed the tradition of the Black Pacific. In particular, Langston Hughes' Jesse's simple stories give insight into the psychic impact of the dropping of an atomic bomb on humans, which produced a cultural fallout on the Black planetary imaginary. I have termed it the Black Nuclear Pacific, upon which the United States atomic history is reimagined and reconfigured, from the first use of the atom bombs on humans in Hiroshima and Nagasaki to extensive nuclear testing in the Pacific Proving Ground in the Marshall Islands and others. In my book, I followed out traces of the Black Nuclear Pacific into the works of Hajime Kijima, Hughes' Japanese translator and poet, who experienced the atom bomb in Hiroshima. Kijima published his bilingual manifesto titled A Pacific Project, to which Hughes planned to contribute his poems, though this plan did not materialize. In the book, the narrator proposes that the Japanese government should deport the unemployed and would-be suicides to a lonely island in the Pacific, obtained a surplus atom bomb from the United States, detonated over them, and erased them from the planet. This work presents a satirical instantiation of what scholars might call annihilation racism.
You also write about Josephine Baker, a Black woman born in St. Louis at the beginning of the 20th century, migrates to Paris, where she finds fame and fortune as an entertainer, dancer, singer, participates with the French underground after the German occupation during World War II. What do you have to say about Josephine Baker?
Baker's posthumously published autobiography, Josephine, registers her ambition to be like the famous aviator Charles Lindbergh. Baker took flying lessons, earned a pilot's license, and flew a private dual-control biplane, which marked the start of her new mobility, that is, aerial mobility. In my book, I traced the intersection of genealogies of Black female aviation and of the Black nuclear Pacific, from which Baker's aerial fairy tale of the Rainbow Tribe developed. Baker's Rainbow Tribe began with her adoption of 2 occupation babies whom she airlifted from Japan to France. Occupation babies are illegitimate mixed-race babies born to Japanese women from members of the occupying forces. In my book, I suggested that Baker's aerial fairy approach to saving and adopting orphans, that is, airlifting babies to France, set an unacknowledged precedent for Henry Hold's baby lifts of Korean GI babies and other baby airlifts that followed, such as those of Cuban and Vietnamese babies in the United States.
You also write about Lorraine Hansberry, known to many in this country as a playwright, Raisin in the Sun, for example, also a journalist. She worked with the U.S. left, particularly Paul Robeson, on his newspaper Freedom in the early 1950s. What do you have to say about Lorraine Hansberry?
Hansberry reviewed the imported Japanese film Hiroshima in the journal edited by Robeson. In her film review, she presented a series of fragmented images of homes that have lost their basic function of human shelter and of women, girls, and babies desperately and hopelessly striving for survival. I offered these readings at the atomic subtext of her 1959 play titled A Raisin in the Sun, in which a Black home is haunted by threats of bombing. Mothers, a fetus, a plant struggle for survival in the play. Hansberry also produced a futuristic post-apocalyptic play, What Use of Flowers, and its precursor unpublished manuscript, with a German title, Gedächtnis. Both feature a female child survivor named after a plant of an unnamed but obviously nuclear holocaust. This character significantly invites a post-apocalyptic feminist reading of patriarchy and girlhood and its human-plant conditions, where a girl is reduced to a bare existence to the level of vegetation or flowers waiting to be appreciated and used.
And what about Malcolm X? What do you have to say about him?
Malcolm X, in the autobiography, he talked about how he evaded the draft by saying that he was frantic to join the Japanese army before World War II. I asked what it means to read Malcolm X, not only in trans-Pacific terms, but also in ways that engage with the nuclear Pacific. During his career as a minister for the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X spoke about the mother plane, a spaceship carrying within it smaller planes loaded with bombs, asserting that these ships will descend on the United States, bomb it, and destroy all the quote-unquote white devils. After his 1964 split with the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X dropped this myth of the mother plane and engaged with hibakusha, survivors of the atom bomb. Malcolm X said to the Japanese hibakusha, quote, "You have been scarred by the atom bomb. You just saw that we have also been scarred. The bomb that hit us was racism," unquote. So he alluded to the infrastructure of racism that built the environment inimical to Black life, as if they had been bombed out. Racism produced human disasters on the scale of an atom bomb through slow violence. I illuminated the entanglement of the racism inherent in the dropping of the technological atom bombs and the infrastructures of racism producing genocide in Malcolm X's remarks.
And what about the alien abduction narrative? What is that?
I discussed the quasi-alien abduction narratives in the chapter on Edith Sampson. Edith Sampson is the first African American to be named an official U.S. representative to the United Nations. Her mission at the UN was to handle the case of the Soviet abduction of Japanese people, among others. After World War II, untold number of Japanese in Manchuria in Northeast Asia, both disarmed soldiers and ordinary citizens, did not return to Japan, a country occupied by the US military, but seemingly disappeared into thin air. I approached Sampson's quasi-alien abduction with Adam Roberts' insight into slavery and science fiction, or more specifically, alien abduction. According to Roberts, stories of alien abductions retell the African slave narrative with history and geography replaced by relocating it to a contemporary SF context. The abduction narrative in Sampson's UN speech performs this same operation by relocating the slave trade to the mysterious context of American-occupied Japan. In my book, I analyzed two of Sampson's important speeches, one containing the story of the mass abduction of Japanese in Manchuria, where the alien other is coded as red, and the abductees are carried away to somewhere unknown, disconnected from the terrestrial geography that all postal addresses are limited to. And the other presenting a tale of what she calls a sky platform, an orbiting artificial satellite in outer space to narrate a race landscape on the Earth, which evokes an imagination of Black otherworldly travel. So read together and across one another, they give a glimpse into the Black area and planetary imaginaries of a prison planet Earth in Sampson's writings.
Anything else to add about the mother plane, which you referred to a few moments ago?
The mother plane or mother ship is a cosmological concept of the Nation of Islam founded in 1930, referring to the unseen gigantic craft bearing baby planes equipped with bombs. A quick glance at the genealogy of this idea in the teachings of the Nation of Islam suggests that the mother plane originates in Japan and is built to destroy the world created by the white race. Given the role Japan played in Nation of Islam thinking based on, quote, on a common platform against white supremacy, unquote, to borrow from your essay published in Radical History Review in 1998, it's possible to trace the lineage of the mother plane back to the Japanese imagined retribution machinery in fiction and in reality. In my book, I was also interested in the evolution of the mother plane after Japan's atomic defeat. The mother plane, presented as having been built in Japan, disappeared into history. But it arguably disappeared in the post-war cultural landscape of the aerospace and atomic age in the United States, in which it was coded as a flying saucer. Exposed to a changing force field, whether the rising tide of color or the rising tide of unsolved cosmic mysteries such as flying saucers, the mother plane undergoes parallel corollary evolutions. Elijah Muhammad taught that the frequent sightings of flying saucers could be emitted from the mother plane. Louis Farrakhan defined the mother plane as a spacecraft and claimed to have been taken or abducted into the mother plane, which he also calls an unidentified flying object.
Finally, Etsuko Takatani, author of the book Aerial Archives of Race, African American Cultural Expressions, and the Black Nuclear Pacific, do you plan any further work on the Black Pacific, a subject which you have served as an ideological and intellectual leader?
I'm writing my fourth book titled Alien Humanity. I'm more interested in the concept of alien humanity or alien humans, whose humanity is both affirmed and alienable. I'm thinking about, we always kind of use the term the racial other, but probably the question of African American history or African American literature cannot really be framed within the idea of racial others, but instead I want to advance the idea of alien humanity. Humans whose humanity is both affirmed as a human being, but also humanity is alienable. And I'm trying to think, how to theorize the idea of alien humanity right now.
Well, we all look forward with eager anticipation to that work. And just as a footnote, I think you're an exemplar of the reality that some of the most exciting and challenging work in Black studies today is being done in Japan. Thank you for joining us on Freedom Now, KPFK, Los Angeles.
This is Sister Flora, and you are listening to Freedom Now at KPFK 90.7 FM in occupied Mexico, including Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara, 93.7 FM in San Diego, and streaming live on the web at kpfk.org. Today's program, as well as 10 prior editions, can be reheard at kpfk.org/audio archive, and scroll down to Freedom Now. For a truly alternative international perspective on world affairs, check out RTTV Russia, CCTV China, and online at Presna, Latina Cuba Telesur Venezuela, News 24, South Africa, and Press TV Iran. We will now continue with historian Professor Dr. Gerald Horne.
Several years ago, my co-author, Stephen Vittoria, and I wrote a series of books called Murder, Inc., I-N-C, not I-N-K, Incorporated. And we were writing about American history from below. We were writing in the spirit of the great late historian Howard Zinn, whose People's History of the United States sparked fires in the minds of millions of young people and continues to do so today. We made a point in Murder, Inc. to distinguish imperial history from national history. And we tried to argue that empires are not nations, but imperial structures that own and direct and lead other nations. Therefore, we argue that empires have no allies, because the very concept of an empire forecloses the ability to have an ally. It has vassals, only vassals, that it controls, that it directs, that it tells them what to do. Why is that important? Look around you. Look at what happened within weeks in Venezuela. Look at what's happening right now in the United States of America, where armed troops are at war with American citizens and people who want to be citizens one day in America. But again, to the point of no vassals. If an empire interacts with a nation, enters that nation by military force, takes its leader, transports the leader and his wife to another country for a case against that leader in the imperial territory, and then sets up leadership to obey its directives, to give them the raw materials in that nation. Are we talking about two nations, or are we talking about an empire and a vassal state? You answer the question, but be honest about it. Years ago, when we wrote those words, we were thinking of Iraq and Afghanistan, where Americans put in puppets to manage, unsuccessfully, mind you, the successor states to the states that were crushed by military attack because of the resistance of the Iraqi people and the Afghan people. We know now that the most powerful weapons in the world cannot create a result if the people continue to resist. We could not have imagined what we're looking at today. We were more right than we thought we were. We suggest that you take a moment to acquire and then read Murder, Inc. today, and then think about what's happening right now before your very eyes. Were we right? You decide. With love, not fear. This is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Prison Radio.
For KPFK Radio, this is Gerald Horne, and with me on the line is Yuichiro Onishi, Associate Professor of African American Studies at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, author of the forthcoming book, Black Radical Thought in Japan, an Afro-Asian Intellectual History. Thank you for joining us on Freedom Now, KPFK Los Angeles, Professor Onishi.
Thank you, Dr. Horne. It's a great honor to be in your show.
It's an honor to have you. So why did you produce this book?
Okay, so the genesis of this book goes back maybe about over 10 years. I've come to know a stellar Japanese intellectual activist based in Japan. Her name is Yoriko Nakajima. I wrote about her a little bit in my first book called Trans-Pacific Anti-Racism and published in 2013. And she was very much bound up with the formation of Japan's Black Studies. She was an international student, a graduate student at the University of Michigan in the late 1950s and early 1960s, where she encountered Robert Williams. Robert Williams was a sort of a towering Black radical activist based in Monroe, North Carolina, scaling up, the scandalous racist regime in the South, but making connection to Cuban Revolution then. And he was on a speaking tour and went through Ann Arbor, where Yoriko Nakajima was a student. And she was completely kind of got pulled into the vortex of this movement building and an individual. So months after, she went down in 1961 to Monroe, North Carolina to witness this movement building. Nakajima continued to stay connected to both Robert and Mabel Williams during the period in which the Williamses were in political exile, starting in Cuba, Castro's Cuba, and then later Mao's China. Nakajima continued to teach in the Department of Political Science in Japan, one of the universities in Tokyo, all the while keeping correspondence with them. 1968, I believe, I might be wrong on the year, but 1968, Robert Williams decided to return to the United States from China. And immediately upon his return, the North Carolina authorities tried to extradite him back to North Carolina. Then Williamses were based in Detroit. Immediately, Nakajima Yoriko started a petition campaign to defend the life and human rights of Robert Williams in Japan, a petition campaign in Japan, and then gathered, and this is now 1970, gather as many as like 14,000 signatures from ordinary people across Japan. And then she brought back the scrolls of these signatures back to Detroit-based activists who were supporting, again, the defense campaign as well. Nakajima continued to stay connected to Williams through their last years, and I met with Nakajima in 2000, I think it's like 10 or 11, started corresponding with her. And then meanwhile, I had a chance to actually meet with Mabel Williams as well, then based in Detroit still, and her son, John Williams, who was actually fluent in Chinese because they both, lived in China. But they wanted to be reconnected, Nakajima and Mabel. So I kind of helped coordinate the reunion between the two. But the genesis of the book is how Nakajima lived Black thought, literally, through the years. And I started digging deep into different associations, different routes where through which Nakajima's associations or networks led to different places in the history of Black radical thought, and specifically Black left, so the political left. People associated with the political left, U.S. Marxism, Black left feminism as well. And I decided to kind of write about this entanglement, the Black thought's entanglement with Japanese intellectual creative activities, mostly in the second half of the 20th century. And so going back to this notion of entanglement in connection to Black radical thought in Japan or Afro-Asian resonances and struggles, I started to find all these Japanese intellectuals that really worked very hard, just as Nakajima did, worked very, very hard to understand the root causes of human suffering and oppression. And many of them, did not come into direct contact with Black radical thinkers, but they came into contact with Black thought through reading, translating various texts. But the portal through which they came into this point of entanglement was primarily through the political left space, particularly, again, US Marxism and Black left feminism. And I'm very interested in trying to kind of pull out this notion of freedom that's lodged in point of entanglement. These intellectual and creative. And I'm not really, the solidarity is certainly there, but I'm not presenting solidarity as this kind of like an ideal form of political commitment to be judged in a context of the cause of freedom. But I feel that during the course of looking at how these Japanese intellectuals and artists came into contact with Black thought, it's like a whole other sense of freedom, that's kind of like lodged inside this Black thought that I found in Japan. And I gave a name to this point of entanglement. It's kind of like, in Japanese, the word, I use the word ma, which refers to a specific condition or specific place that is an interstices, intervening space, a ma. And likewise, I try to name this space as the Trans-Pacific phylon. And the phylon is the word invoked by W.E.B. Du Bois in 1940 when he launched the journal, academic journal at Atlanta University called Phylon, Atlanta University Journal of Race and Culture. And he assigned the word phylon, which is the Greek word for race. And I can tell you more about Du Bois' association, how he enters into this space, ma, of Afro-Asian radicalism. But Du Bois is central, kind of a protagonist. For me, in theorizing this space, the conceptual space called Trans-Pacific phylon, where I do the best I can to dislodge this whole other sense of freedom that I discover through the study of Japanese intellectual creative activities bound up with Black radical thought.
Now, speaking of Du Bois, could you elaborate on the role he plays in this book, Black Radical Thought, and perhaps Paul Robeson, his comrade, as well?
Okay, so Du Bois, Japanese intellectuals were, particularly in the post-war, familiar with Du Bois' work. And how did they discover Du Bois' Black thought, radical thought? They discovered Du Bois' writings through the Communist Party of the United States, or U.S. Communist Party, CPUSA literature. And it's not that his CPUSA materials were flooding in the Japanese kind of intellectual sphere, but people who were connected to the literature, were interested in and studying with some rigor literature coming out of the Communist International, we're starting to see that there's specific kind of strand of thought, sort of black-red nexus that they're starting to kind of discover, specific strand of black radical thought grounded in black-red connection. I talk about this one individual. He's actually gets picked up in the most recent book by a colleague, Etsuko Taketani's book, where she introduces this one Japanese translator of Langston Hughes. He was also a poet. His name, the literary pseudonym, is called Hajime Kijima. But before he became this Hajime Kijima, took on that persona and a literary kind of pseudonym, his real name is Shozo Kojima. And he was quite active in Japanese student radical movement building during the US occupation period. And now US occupation period is from 1945 to 1952. With the advent of anti-communist sort of politics and crisis, Japan unleashed, as the same way that it was unleashed in the United States, highly repressive kind of policymaking and directives. And the political left in Japan were attacked and surveilled and repressed. And as a student at the University of Tokyo, Shozo Kojima was in the middle of all of that. And shortly after graduating, he graduated just as the US occupation of Japan ended in 1952. He became a high school teacher, but he was also an aspiring poet. And at some point in this political left space in Japan, where he was probably aligned with the Japanese Communist Party, kind of a space cultural front, he discovered Du Bois' writing. And it's a writing that was this very specific writing. He found an excerpt of Dusk of Dawn. It's actually I think it's the last chapter where Du Bois talks about revolution. And Dusk of Dawn is one of the autobiographies that Du Bois published in 1940, and his disenchantment with sort of American notion of liberalism is very clear cut, and he's moving decisively toward Marxism and then the left. And Shozo Kojima, also known as Hajime Kijima, wanted to translate this chapter into Japanese. And specifically, he wanted to introduce this writing in a very specific milieu or journal connected to Buraku liberation. And now, Buraku people are historically minoritized people in Japan, the people of the outcast. And they were experiencing definite limits to advancement and progress. Race and caste, race and class dynamics prevented them from entering into Japanese society as a full citizen. Buraku liberation, or Buraku Black people, began to look closely at Black struggle as a point of reference to make sense of their project of liberation. And now Shozo Kojima was connected to Buraku Liberation platform and writing for the journal called Buraku. And so he wanted to translate. But this is just about one example of Du Bois' centrality to my work. This is a concrete connection between a specific individual and Du Bois. But I was really drawn to actually Du Bois' mid-century political formation and how he moved away from NAACP model of Black struggle to decisively more he's been an internationalist for a long time, but specifically his movement toward peace activism and anti-colonialism, and particularly his connection to Council on African Affairs and that New York City black cultural, not culture, black left, cultural for sure. So his connection or relationship with Paul Robeson, to Harlem became a very important, for me, for this study in making sense of black radical thought in Japan. But a lot of the intellectuals that I have come to kind of follow, the black intellectuals, were very much connected to this specific New York City or the Harlem black milieu. So that's one of the ways in which I'm beginning to, that I unpacked in this book, the centrality of Du Bois and Robeson, but specifically Harlem. So the Harlem Writers Guild, for instance, in 1950s and into the 1960s, is a very, very important kind of a container of black thought, which I define as a kind of a black thought is like a constellation of ideas generated by black artists, writers, and thinkers. So it's a constellation of ideas. Constellation, as you know, you can see constellation, the stars and their formations when the world is dark. You can't see it during the day. And I use the word constellation on purpose to kind of get at that kind of a power, the light and lightness and dark and sun up and sundown. Dusk of Dawn, too, is the Du Bois autobiography, the title. I've always wrestled with that notion, like, what does that mean, Dusk of Dawn? Where is the location then of black thought when the formulation of time and space is conceptualized as Du Bois does as a dusk of dawn? But anyway, so the black thought is a constellation of ideas about emancipation generated by black artists and writers. But it's also a place where one might begin to sort of cultivate black thought is a place where one might cultivate a necessary faculty, like a sort of way of thinking, to think about the governance of human life by something other than race, capitalism, and militarism. And I think that Du Bois and Robeson in the 1950s, in the face of just violent political repression, anti-communist wrath, I really resonated with me, that how they were holding black thought, but holding black thought as a space, a place to think about a different society, different gathering of people. And in the post-19, to move in that direction where Du Bois and Robeson held, the place that they held. And they were not in it because they're so far apart, but they're moving closer to it and standing or sitting or inhabiting adjacent to it, and of course outside. So being adjacent to outside of black radical thought, held together by Du Bois and Robeson, is a certain kind of formulation that I came up with for this book, which I called it Trans-Pacific Phylon. But they were not entirely in it, but they're adjacent to and outside of that space. And I'm calling it black radical thought in Japan. And I can name other people who come into this specific space or place called Trans-Pacific Phylon. And because of the connections with New York City black radical space, I talk about people like Esther Cooper Jackson, managing editor of Freedom Ways, and I trace her kind of a genealogy all the way back to the 1930s and the Popular Front era, and I also talk about Harlem Writers Guild and black women artists such as Abby Lincoln or the writer Paul Marshall were sort of in that space alongside Sarah E. Wright, another very important black women writer, Alice Childress, who's a playwright, but also working alongside Paul Robeson and Du Bois in the same building, in the same office where Robeson and Du Bois shared in Harlem, because Childress was working for Freedom, the newspaper edited by, owned and published by Robeson. So those are some of the ways in which I'm kind of tracking. And Japanese intellectual become the translator of, let's say, Abby Lincoln's work, or Paul Marshall's novel, specific novel called The Praise Song for the Widow. So that's a specific Black left feminism that I try to unpack, and how these Japanese women kind of come close to it, sitting adjacent to, but in and outside of Black left feminism.
Well, Professor Onishi, author of the forthcoming book, Black Radical Thought in Japan, an Afro-Asian Intellectual History, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you for joining us on Freedom Now, KPFK, Los Angeles.
In closing, we'd like to thank our guests, starting with Professor Etsuko Taketani, representing the University of Tsukuba in Japan, and author of the book Aerial Archives of Race, African American Cultural Expressions, and the Black Nuclear Pacific. Next up, we give thanks to Professor Yuichiro Onishi from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities and author of the book Black Radical Thought in Japan, an Afro-Asian Intellectual History. Shout out to Dr. Gerald Horne for doing what he does best and guiding this train of mental liberation towards Pan-African enlightenment for yet another Saturday. Word to producer Sister Tej. Many thanks to Sister Luyanda Kaboka on the historical drumbeat calendar for the week. Shout out to Prison Radio and revolutionary soldier Mumia Abu Jamal for providing his much-needed wisdom for us as well. Much love to our spiritual backbone and Freedom Now founder, Baba Didan Kamathi. Shout out to our marvelous engineer, and last but certainly not least, thanks to all of our loyal listeners and supporters. It takes a village to build a revolution, and Freedom Now is a village to be reckoned with. This has been Brother Brandon Sankara, and you can join us on Facebook at Freedom Now Gerald Horne. You can email the program at freedomnow@kpfk.org, or go to our audio archives on kpfk.org and scroll down to find Freedom Now, so you'll be able to hear this program as well as 60 days worth of prior programming here at KPFK 90.7 FM. Until next Saturday, here at Freedom Now, we stand running our marathon, ready for revolution.
We state these facts only to let you know that those of us who are revolutionary, Pan-Africanists, is not because we love revolution. It is historically determined, and we have no alternative but to follow history and to use history for the benefit of our people.